Hi, are you struggling with people pleasing? Is that something that you wish you could stop? Well, if so, you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to give you my own example of how I stop people pleasing. I have two of those, so therefore two videos, this one and another one. And there is another video which I speak of people displeasing in terms of how it lives in our astrological chart and why it lives there and why we people please and what we can do about it. So that also I will link below. But today, because I will be speaking from my own experience, even if that's not your actual chart and you don't recognize those placements, like they're not like yours, right? If you're interested generally to understand how astrology, how to think astrologically, how to live astrologically, how to apply astrology knowledge into your actual life, and how to interpret, how to work with how to make sense of the archetypes and the planets and the signs and the houses and all that, right? Then you also might want to stick around because as I'll be walking you through that, I'll be talking about the archetypes and how they manifest, and then what you do with them. How do you navigate them to actually serve you and not keep you stuck in the people-pleasing reflexes? Okay, so so the four areas in the chart where you can have those, everyone has those, where people-pleasing lives in our chart. There are four areas. So that is your 7th house, your Venus, your Chiron, and your Libra Aries axis. So you could have them all in one area, or you can have them scattered everywhere, like in all different areas. Well, I'm somewhere in between. So I have a 7th house, which I have a separate video on, which I'll link below. Or if it's not live yet, then just subscribe and you'll be notified. So I have that. I have 7th house, and neither Aries, no Libra, no Venus, no Chiron there. And then I have a Libra Aries axis, and I have Venus and Chiron conjunct in Aries. So at one end of the axis. So it's like I have two, and it is literally like my story. Like if you listen to the other one, those are really my two areas, and I can clearly see how I worked with becoming a people displeaser or stopping being a people pleaser through those two areas of my life. So I had already spoken about 7th house, which is about more direct kind of story about relationships and other people in your life, where this is more roundabout way to arriving at the same, because people pleasing ultimately is always about other people. That's all people pleasing, right? So it's always about relationships. But 7th house can be sometimes, well, it always is, rather, not sometimes, it always is directly your relationships, like how are you relating to others. And then in my case, I already spoken about that. And then my 6th and my Libra Aries axis is elsewhere, or it can be in your 7th house, which then doubles down the whole kind of relationship people pleasing piece. So for me, Libra Aries axis is 6th house Libra and Aries 12th house. In 6th house Libra, I have Uranus, and in 12th house Aries, I have Venus and Chiron conjunct. So how I discovered, this is where I even discovered people pleasing most consciously for the first time. And in a way, it's easier to discover it. So in my other video where I spoke on my 7th house, I think the timeline I gave was a bit later, like in my 40s, I became actively to be working on this, on people pleasing, or rather, to free myself from it, cure myself from it, in terms of those relationships, like my 7th house. But the 6th house, this other axis, is actually even earlier, because it's almost like we're not, the other once we step into the 7th house, and I have a separate video on that, we add complexity to all the issues that we have in relationships, because the other person is there, and that adds complexity. We have no control over it, we have no real knowledge of another person, however much they're open with us and all that. But everything else, like when you're not in your 7th house, then it's like you have that, no distractions. It's like switching phone off and sitting and doing the work. So you're more clear, you're clear about where you're at, what's happening there. So 6th house which is where I have Libra and Uranus, is daily activities. And for me, back in the day, so this is my 30s, 40s, that was work, like 9 to 5 jobs. And that was basically every day, right? Well, 5 days a week, sometimes more. But my point there being is that I would work, and then I was a contractor, so I would work a year, and then I would have 6 months, or 3 months, or 6 months, sometimes depend, free, and then I'd get another job. the contract. But this time I was like already into 9 months. I wasn't really looking for work, but what I noticed, so I kind of didn't want to work. I was happy not to at that point. But what I noticed is loneliness. Like I was like, wow, me lonely? I love solitude. Why am I feeling lonely? And so then I was like realizing that it was to do with work. Like I was just starting to, which is how this whole realization got triggered, because it was like, wow, I really fancy like getting up and going to work, and like mingling. It's like, for me, Uranus in sixth house is social. Uranus is Aquarius. It is social. It loves people, but not loves, enjoys that kind of interaction, but also like spaciousness. And so I always loved, and most of my jobs were like corporate, which big corporations, and that means that I would sometimes not see one person for a whole week. And then there's variety. There is, just I loved all that, and I missed it. Like, and then I realized, well, why am I not having like, where are my friends? And then I was like also realizing I don't really have many friends. I mean, it wasn't like I knew all that, but it was like I was just kind of adding it, like, so this is, well, if I had friends, then this wouldn't be so much of a problem. Well, I don't really do friends as much because I just can't seem to feel comfortable being myself and true to who I am, and speak my mind and speak my truth and still be in a relationship. I don't know how to do that. I either have tried and it just didn't work, or I downright didn't even try because I kind of knew it wouldn't work or thought it wouldn't work, blah, blah, blah. And so all of this, from work and me realizing being at home and not at work with other people, led me to my Venus relationships, which is then my Venus. And yes, I'm in Libra house, which is relationships, but that's the difference between house and sign. So your sixth house is, if it's Libra, it is relationships. It's relationships at work. But relationships outside of work, or other relationships like seventh house, personal relationships, or we have friends, then that's a seventh house. And Libra in a natural zodiac, that's where this took me. And I was like, so where is my Venus? Venus is also our relationships, and Venus rules this house, sixth house. So you want to go where the ruler is when you're trying to solve the problem of a house. And so I was like, okay, Venus is relationships. I already kind of, like I said, talked about the seventh house. Which was, in my actual life journey, as I'm kind of trying to relate to you, it wasn't like such a clean, containers of like, this week I'm working on my seventh house, and then this week, no, but it was, just for the sake of sharing it with you, making it helpful and useful. And so that ruler of my sixth, of my Libra sixth house, took me to my 12th, which was like, well, of course I love solitude, but also what it means, I love solitude more than I love company. And so, of course, that's not conducive to cultivating connections that I can then count on in times like when I'm feeling lonely, because most of the time I'm actually more happier to be on my own than in a company of someone. And then I was looking at the fact that it's a Venus, as in Aries, with Chiron there. And as I was reading about my Venus in Aries, I was like, well, of course. I mean, I remember all these like rejection, Chiron, original wound, which is in the other video, of general 4 areas in the chart. I was like, I was rejected every time I was being my Venus in Aries. So it's honest, like not really thoughtful, like direct, aggressive. Well, I don't think it was aggressive. When I say this, there is abrasiveness to the word because of the judgment that comes with it. But I know that my energy is, it is like that. And I can be, like just cutting as well. And, what else? Loud, non-girly, non-feminine. Oh, so not. I mean, by now I can be. It's in 12th house, so it's not exactly being feminine is an alien to me, but it's still Venus in Aries. So anyway, the point is, as I was reading all of that about Venus in Aries, I was like, that is me, and I love that me. I feel so good when I'm like that, and I know it's such a quality. Like, it's a great quality to be honest, to be direct, to be, no frills. To me, it is because value, right? Venus is values. To me, those are great values. But I realize why, because obviously that's not typically acceptable, not easily acceptable by other. And essentially, that's the Aries piece. Aries is really not about being in a relationship. Really isn't. I mean, that's not to say that any one Aries I'm not going to repeat this every time. I think I'm going to have a separate video, always point to it, where I explain that when I speak of any of these Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, whatever, it's not if you're one of those signs, your sun, that's just one aspect of you, that it's not about you, it's not about one person, it's the archetype, right? So anyway, and so I was realizing how this Aries piece is not meant to be like in easy relationships. It's meant to have confrontations, it's meant to have arguments, it's meant to have friction and tension, and actually I like it, right? And then the rejection, but I'm so like, I can't bear the rejection of any kind. That was me then. And but then I wrote, and this is what happens, this is what astrology does. So, but hold on, I might not be able to bear rejection, I might feel like it's the worst thing in the world, and I do, or I have. But the fact that it's conjunct my Venus, it means that's the permission slip. That's what I talk in another video about, how it's the permission to be who you are, to actually do that archetype in all its complexity, in its fullness, because that's it. The chart tells you it's okay, and and then you see that and you go, I know, that is how I'm meant to be. So I'm meant to be experiencing rejection and conflict, not like major arguments every day, no, but just like that like, it's not smooth, it's not lovely, it's not gentle, it's not. And all my relationships are like that. Even nowadays with my husband, after how many years, almost 30 years together, there is a undertone to and he's Venus in Capricorn, so we are square, and both sides are separation, like we are not, and that's why I love us. But my point there being, there is always the kind of like, he's my biggest fan in one sense, but in another sense, it's like really not agreeing with much of what I do. So it's like I'm having to confront that someone's not agreeing with me, someone rejecting me on daily basis. Now, that hasn't stopped our relationship or our love, you see, it works, but only because I have finally, some years ago now, but accepted that is having Venus and Chiron together, is that I have to make peace with rejection. I have to be okay with the rejection. I have to value it. I have to love it, Venus, right? So what I did was I was like, well, who can help me with this? Artists. Because who lives with rejection every day, if not artists? Well, maybe not every day, but they have to be honest in their artwork. Otherwise, you can smell it and it's not therefore good art. And then B, it's just the nature of art being so subjective in terms of aesthetics and taste, right? So it's going to get rejected by whoever, and then not by some others, right? But rejection is a given. It's definitely going to be, they practice it even at the academies and stuff. And that's the piece. It's like, just think about it. So this is how Aries works, opposite Libra, right? So why we are people pleasing, because we are scared of Aries. And so currently we have this transit where South Node is in Libra and North Node is in Aries. So we're working through all these shadows of Libra, people pleasing being one of the biggest ones. And we are embodying and having given the impetus, the permission slip to embody Aries courage and the requirement for honesty, basically. But honesty, peace, and rejection is like, if you lie to someone and are rejected, you don't really care. You're just maybe miffed that it didn't really work out as you planned, like your plan didn't come to fruition. But to be honest and be rejected, that's what hurts, because we are raw, we have exposed ourselves and then being rejected for it. And so anyway, so what I've done, I created an experience for myself and other people where we practice actively rejection. And so I'm not going to go into that, but basically the first time we did this, I was the first to go because I was a host. So I shared myself vulnerably about something. And then I invited anyone. And one of the rules was to obviously share yourself honestly and vulnerably first and foremost. And then to invite negative feedback, challenging feedback, rejection, right? To invite that, to actually welcome it. And it has to be genuine. So if no one feels like rejecting you, then you're not getting it. But if they are, then you're getting it, and that's good. That's the whole point of the experience. And so when I went first, that happened exactly like that. It was the best. I mean, oh my God, it was incredible. It shattered me. And I, what's the word? I was shaken to my core. But it was, oh my God, it was exquisite. I could literally be plugged into that every week. And I have since sought out actively experiences with other people, one to one, when I can't create this, where I take part in it. I create it for other people to do this, and I will still be doing that in some near future probably. But I want to experience it, so I'm always on the lookout for such things. And yeah, so this first time when it happened, it was like basically he just told me what he thought of it, and it wasn't offensive in a kind of like a inappropriate sense. Just like, he was civil, but he was like slaying me. Like, he was like, that? No, that's not good. That's, yeah, and all that, right? And I was like, whoa. I mean, I wasn't. I was just very composed. And because what I wanted was to receive it and to actually experience that. And what happens is that the more you do that, the more you get comfortable being rejected, because the fear of rejection is really the fear of how you're going to crumble and how you're going to just then make things worse, and the other person's going to crumble as a result of you crumbling or whatever. Just like it's hell, right? It's the mess, the whole mess. No, when you practice it, when this happens, what I realize that I can hold myself. I just need time and space to process that first time, certainly, but even in real life, like I would, and now, and not anymore. But ultimately, what that has shown me is that, and what it does for you when you allow yourself to be rejected, it just gives you, first you survive, it's fine. You don't react. That's the piece. You don't react. Like, you ask for it and you got it, and that's it. I'm done. I'll see you tomorrow. And then you process that, and it's that knowledge that you survived. That actually wasn't that bad, and it actually was quite thrilling. So okay, that's me Venus in Aries. Maybe I do love that kind of stuff, but also it has strengthened your muscle for rejection, like muscle to withstand rejection, right? So that when it happens again, you're not as, and every time it happens, like I said, but now, like, yeah, I mean, it's probably there are, like I say, with my husband, doesn't just like water off duck's back, I think is the expression. But there are other, relationships where if it happened, I wouldn't be as blasé about it or as kind of used to it, but because I'm not used to it, right? That's the thing. But it's like I walk it, like it's just like I do it. It's like I do anything else, and it just registers, and that's it. And it's just, that's the piece. So it's that fear. So now I speak my truth, because I don't fear rejection anymore. I don't fear separation. I don't fear retaliation. I don't fear breakup. I don't fear the end of the relationship. I don't fear war. I don't fear argument, because, I mean, it may happen. All these things actually may happen, but I'm not out of control. I know how to walk that path because I have made myself do it. And so, yeah, if this sounds interesting, yeah, just let me know what you think of all of this. And if you are also like a recovering people pleaser, or used to be and now you're not, I'd love to hear your story. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next week.